Good morning with your major newscast. I am Jessica Dart, comes to you with the compliments of the Eureka Medical Laboratories. First with the highlights. The Caribbean's two major mobile telecoms providers are to examine how WhatsApp and similar services can be taxed. Operation Recovery is underway to get primary school students back in the classroom. And in the region, Suriname soldiers have been sent to a senior citizens' home where workers have gone on strike. And 3 persons have been shot dead in Trinidad. And you'll have your latest international news coming from the BBC. Do stay tuned.
Don't let the fear of contracting the coronavirus disease deter you from seeking the medical care you need. At Eureka Labs, we ensure the safety of our clients and staff with our rigid sanitization routine. This involves the use of ultraviolet lights to effectively rid the air and all surfaces of viruses and bacteria that may be present throughout the lab daily. The light works to rapidly inactivate microorganisms through a physical process that is invisible to human eye. So the next time you need a checkup, don't hesitate to give us a call on 225-7574 to schedule your appointment.
Now for the news in detail. The Caribbean Community CARICOM and the region's 2 major mobile phone companies have agreed to examine taxing over-the-top OTT services like WhatsApp and similar services. Digicel says it agreed with Cable and Wireless and CARICOM to share professional studies concerning the taxation of OTTs. They also agreed to discuss the potential regulatory framework for CARICOM telecom service providers. Other OTT services include Telegram, Skype, Signal, and Teams. These services are used free of cost as part of subscribers' data plans, something telecommunication companies say have been robbing them of much-needed revenue. The Guyana government and the People's National Congress Reform, PNCR, on Thursday united in condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In condemning the violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity by Russia, the Guyana government is calling for the immediate cessation of military action. The Air Finale-led administration says it is consulting its international partners. And the PNCR, the major party in the opposition coalition, a partnership for national unity plus Alliance for Change, also called for the withdrawal of troops. The PNCR says Russia's invasion of Ukraine amounts to a violation of its territorial integrity and the principle of sanctity of contracts and that of internationally recognized borders. Guyana has unresolved border claims with neighboring Venezuela and Suriname. The PNCR notes the Russia-Ukraine conflict, noted that even at this juncture, there is room for diplomatic efforts by powerful nations and multilateral organizations to end the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. With oil prices soaring above $100 per barrel for the first time in 7 years, the PNCR noted that Guyana could not afford to ignore that conflict in Europe. This is because it has grave implications for the peaceful development and for the geopolitics of Europe, the rest of the world, and more particularly, and negative consequences for the world economy. The Ministry of Education says it has launched Operation Recovery within the 11 education districts to get back students into the classroom now that the COVID-19 pandemic appears to be waning. The Education Ministry says the aim is to find primary school students who have been continuously absent from school since school restarted. Operation Recovery, according to the Education Ministry, is also targeting those who have missed the recent National Grade 6 Assessment NGSA mock examination. Last official figures show that 1,300 grade 6 children were absent from the grade 6 mock exam. This move will see education officers from central ministry and within the education districts, along with regional officials and community activists, fanning out into communities to locate these pupils. The exercise aims to ascertain the location of the students and the reasons behind their absenteeism so that the Ministry of Education can assist these students to return to school. The scientific data gathered from countries around the world in numerous studies by varying organizations continue to show that the long school closures resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic will lead to an increase in rate of school dropouts and a tremendous learning loss unless countries take urgent practical measures to mitigate against this. The number of persons in a COVID-19 intensive care unit has dropped to 7. Overall, the health ministry says there are 52 persons in hospital. The statistics also show that the number of persons who have been ordered to isolate themselves at home has dropped to less than 1,000. In fact, there are now 712 persons who have been asked to stay at home. 6 others have been quarantined to see if they will develop symptoms of the viral disease. Based on the latest tests within the past 24 hours, the Ministry of Health, there are 19 new cases. Since the first case was recovered here in March 2020, 62,798 cases have been recovered and 60,811 have recovered. An 18-year-old man died on Thursday after the car he was driving slammed into the Demerara Distillers Limited DDL Fence Diamond East Bank Demerara. Dead is Prakash Salvador of 1316 Section C, Block Y, Golden Grove, East Bank Demerara. Police said the incident occurred at about 8:15 a.m. Police say the car was being driven at a fast rate of speed when Salvador lost control of the vehicle and it struck the fence. Salvador was removed from the wreck in an unconscious condition and taken to the Diamond Diagnostic Center where he died while receiving medical attention. Now for the news in the region. Suriname soldiers have been deployed to a senior citizens' home where workers have gone on strike. Star News reports that the Ministry of Defense has sent military personnel to support the senior citizens' home named Wizi Hashni Anna. The soldiers have been deployed to assist the home in the kitchen, medical, and security areas. Defense Minister Krishna Mathuria says that a vulnerable group of senior citizens cannot be abandoned. She hopes that the industrial unrest at the senior citizens' home will end soon and the soldiers will be withdrawn. The retirement home offers housing, nursing, and care to senior citizens from 60 years of age and older who can no longer function independently due to social, medical, or nursing reasons and who do not have the opportunity to do so elsewhere. More in the region. In Trinidad, 2 bandits and a woman were shot dead this morning after the criminals invaded a home.
3 persons are dead following a home invasion in West Mornings. TTT News understands that sometime after 8:30, 2 intruders attempted to break into a house located at Cherry Crescent. Upon entry, a woman was shot and killed by one of the assailants. A relative who possesses a licensed firearm confronted the intruders and a shootout ensued. During the shootout, the 2 intruders were killed and a woman who lived at the home. The woman was taken to the St. James Medical Center but succumbed to injuries. Up until news time, police are said to be on the scene conducting inquiries.
More in the region. In Antigua, there has been a spate of break and enter and larceny at schools. Here's the latest from ABS Radio.
The COVID-19 pandemic has caused much disruption to schools over the past few years. But now, education officials say recent school break-ins and vandalism are compounding learning challenges. The Clay Hall Secondary School is one of the institutions the perpetrators have targeted in the string of break-ins. I spoke with Principal Ashwood Azil, who tells me it has impacted the school in more ways than one.
Over the last 3.5 weeks, we've experienced 3 break-ins. 3 break-ins which really have resulted in tremendous loss to the school, both in terms of material resources, in terms of lost learning time and so forth.
He says the vandals have taken computers, projectors and other vital teaching tools. Azil represented principals at a stakeholder meeting this week discussing ways to address the issue. He says Otter's Comprehensive School has also come under attack from vandals.
Where you had human excrement being left, in classrooms and so forth. That certainly is barbaric and by any measure reeks of just pure callous disregard for the value of education.
He says these incidents further retard learning for students already faced with challenges from the pandemic.
That every time a school has to stop for a half a day, to clean, sanitize, restore their classrooms to an operational state, restore their staff rooms and administrative areas to an operational state. Those are hours that we're taking away from students learning.
This week's meeting included Education Ministry officials, teacher union members, and representatives from Public Works, the division which handles school security.
We are looking for some concrete plans, and they have committed to ensuring that there is some concrete plans in place that can be communicated to us by the end of this week.
Public Works Head of Security Robert Martin says they are considering several interventions, including electronic monitoring and improved lighting at school plants. Jamie J. O'Shea, ABS News.
And that there was your regional news. Here now is your international news coming from the BBC.
BBC News. Hello, this is Jerry Smith. Russian forces appear to have reached northern Kiev on the second day of Moscow's attack on Ukraine. Social media footage has shown Russian armoured vehicles in the northern Obolon district. There have also been reports of clashes in northern Kiev. The Russian authorities say a Russian subversion and reconnaissance group has entered the area. James Woodhouse is in Kiev.
We are seeing Russian convoys of armoured vehicles making their way down just a few miles from here in the Obolon district, seemingly making their way unchallenged through the roads. We understand, according to the government, that there are saboteurs, Russian saboteurs, already in the city. We've seen reports of, and colleagues have seen gunfire, heavy gunfire, just a couple of kilometres away, further down the Dnipro River. Security forces are putting up a fight, but I think Russian troops are moving in. And as far as the West is concerned, their goal is to remove the Ukrainian government.
The army is fighting the invaders outside the city and has blown up a bridge north of Kiev to slow the advance from Belarus. Russian armoured columns are also pushing into Ukraine from the south and the east. Heavy clashes were reported during the night in the city of Sumy, close to the Russian border. The Ukrainians say they've inflicted material damage on the invaders. Overnight, loud explosions and air raid sirens could be heard across Kiev, where thousands of people stayed in metro stations to shelter from airstrikes. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Russian forces are attacking civilian as well as military targets. The Ukrainian Interior Ministry said 2 children have been killed as Russia hit more than 30 civilian sites over the past 24 hours. Earlier, Mr. Zelensky said 137 Ukrainians had died.
The second morning of a full-scale war. At 4 a.m., the Russian forces continued rocket strikes on Ukrainian territories. They say civilian objects are not targets. It's a lie. The reality is they don't see a difference in which areas they target. Just like yesterday, both military and civilians are under the Russian strikes.
Mr. Zelensky said Ukraine had been left to fight Russia alone because everyone else was afraid. The French Finance Minister, Bruno Le Maire, says the European Union wants to isolate Russia financially in response to its attack on Ukraine. He was speaking before a meeting of finance ministers in Paris. The United States also announced further sanctions against Russia, targeting its largest banks and state-owned companies and freezing trillions of dollars in assets. However, China warned that sanctions were never an effective way to solve problems. BBC News. Shares have risen after steep falls on Thursday when Russia began its attack on Ukraine. Tokyo recovered most of the losses it suffered on Thursday. Indexes were also up in Shanghai, but in Europe the recovery has been more muted. Russia has meanwhile banned all British-linked carriers from its airspace. Large numbers of Ukrainian civilians are on the move, fleeing fighting and the advance of Russian forces. On Thursday, the UN estimated that 100,000 people had left their homes. Many are internally displaced. Our correspondent, Mark Lowen, is near the Polish-Ukrainian border.
The Polish authorities are worried that there could be over 1 million refugees. They've said that perhaps even up to 3 million who could potentially flee Ukraine and come into Poland. And they are setting up reception centres on the border to offer food and medical assistance. We're hearing reports that there are queues of some 7 to 10 hours, cars and pedestrians crossing the border from Ukraine. And the Polish authorities have said that they will welcome the Ukrainians, calling them their brothers, offering solidarity and support to the Ukrainians in their hour of need.
European football's governing body Uefa has moved the venue for this year's Champions League final from St. Petersburg in Russia to Paris, following the invasion of Ukraine. The match, the biggest club game of the European calendar, will now be played in the Stade de France. Ukrainian officials say they're recording increased levels of radiation at the former nuclear power plant, Chernobyl, which was seized by Russian troops on Thursday. They said it was impossible to establish the reason for the change in radiation. The Russian Defense Ministry says the radiation level in the exclusion zone around the Chernobyl plant is normal. And those are the latest stories from BBC News.
And that was your international news.
A COVID-19 PCR test is now mandatory for many routine activities, including travel and return to work purposes. At Eureka, our trained and experienced staff will ensure confidentiality while your test is conducted in a professional and timely manner with results in just 48 hours. So the next time you require an efficient and hassle-free PCR COVID-19 test, call 624-8378, 608-8378, or 623-7233 to schedule your appointment. You can also ask about our house call testing service.
And here now is a recap of your highlights. The Caribbean's two major mobile telecoms providers are to examine how WhatsApp and similar services can be taxed. Operation Recovery is underway to get primary school students back in the classrooms. In the region, Suriname soldiers have been sent to a senior citizens' home where workers have gone on strike. And 3 persons have been shot dead in Trinidad. And you had your latest international news coming from the BBC. And that was your major newscast that came to you with the compliments of the Eureka Medical Laboratories. I am Jessica Daw.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.